Hello and welcome to Tonalist Painting with M. Francis McCarthy. This is your painter in residence, M. Francis McCarthy, and the painting I'm bringing you guys today is called Tree in a Paddock, and I painted this back in, I want to say April. It could have been March or April. Definitely labeling it April because I'm pretty sure it was April. Anyway, painted this tree back in like 2012 or so. Sold that painting. That painting had some big changes to it. Same tree though, and this type of tree is called a totra. This one is not totally mature. It's probably a few years old. I don't know, maybe 10. I really don't know my trees, which is funny because I am known locally as the guy who loves trees and the tree painter, which is, interesting since I do paint a lot of trees and I do love trees, but, what I love is, painting landscapes, and that would be trees with skies and grasses and whatever else is going on, but whatever, that's people for you. I have noticed an interesting phenomenon of I call it a consciousness test. When people come into my studio, some people just see the frames, they don't even see the paintings. They ask if I'm a framer, and then the next level is like, oh, you must love trees, you love trees. Yeah, and then, the ones that are a little more on, go, wow, your skies are really great. You must love skies. Yeah, well, that's getting closer. I do love painting skies. That's probably my favorite bit to paint. Although, to be honest, painting is painting. I like to paint, And so that's what I do all day long, every day. We brought you, I think it was day 3 of 25 Days of Tonalism Volume 2 yesterday, and that was a nice little painting. I am keeping that going, and also got some playlists going. That was a John Francis Murphy, I'm reminded, because I recently created a John Francis Murphy playlist, so if you like my John Francis Murphy studies, check that out. As far as how it's going in the studio, yesterday was Saturday. I didn't feel like taking on any bigger paintings starting. I'd finished off a few on the Friday, and Saturday's just not a day I like to jump in and start things. I don't know, it's the end of the week, But so what I did was I did a couple more studies for the 25 Days of Tonalism Volume 2, and had a lot of fun doing that. I did I think it's the Charles Dewey, really nice study after a sunset painting of his, all in oranges and rusts, and actually some real interesting greens and things in there too. It's good. I really I see the 25 Days of Tonalism projects as just being a furtherance of my education as a painter, and a way that I can sort of stretch in small ways and do things that I wouldn't always do. But like this orangey sunset with the rich greens on the ground really is effective, and that's something I'd like to try down the road. Anyway, those went pretty well. I'm pretty happy with them. The other study was not technically a tonalist, but Ruisdael, and forgive me if I don't remember his first 5 names, but he's a great Dutch painter, and the Dutch guys, I don't care what you say, they started tonalism. They really were the first guys to get that tonal landscape thing across in a brilliant way, and to really put the focus squarely on the landscape. You had people that come along later like Constable and things like that took it even further, but that's the ground floor of tonalism. And actually, you mentioned Constable. His work wasn't really tonal, but it was brilliant. I love Constable. I have a a big fat book of his work that I love to look at, and I especially love Constable Studies. Now, I get a lot of people coming into my studio looking at my work, which has a traditional quality to it, and the first thing they say is Constable, but that's because they're aware of the English tradition of painting and not aware at all of the American school of tonalism, and which a lot of Americans aren't either, but that's not saying much, because there's not many people aware of most schools of painting. The exception being, of course, most people have some awareness of it. It is something like Impressionism or Cubism or one of those isms, but well, I guess tonalism is an ism, but tonalism didn't really make the cut. But it's making a resurgence. I don't know how much of a surge there is in that resurgence, but I see activity. One of the reasons why I started this YouTube channel and decided to share all my work on the blog as well was to help promote tonalism, and the only way I could see to do that was to just share what I did, and in my own small way, booster it, promote it, and I've been doing that for, I don't know, 2 years now, something like that. It's ongoing. But I originally had started a blog where I was going to write about tonalism and tonalism painters, and then big surprise, I discovered that was a heck of a lot of work, and basically I'm not that kind of researcher. I'm a painter, so while I'm somebody that has a pretty extensive awareness of the movement and the artists involved, a lot of it is at an intuitive level as a painter, and I'm not so good on things like the details, which a lot of people, of course, would want to have provided. And what I found myself doing on that particular blog was just, posting up links saying, oh, go read this, So I thought, well, no real reason to keep that going. Anyway, a little bit, I guess, more about this painting. It's painted over a failed painting, and I believe the failed painting is probably on just straight up Cowrie ply, not on the MDF with the Cowrie laminate that I use these days, and for that reason there might be a little bit of a bow or a warp in it, but still a nice piece of wood that deserved a good painting on it. I think I'd originally done this painting that was like, more and more, I knew it wasn't going to work out when I started it, but back in the old days, I would go ahead and try and make things work anyway, and I still do that sometimes, but because you have to believe that you can make things work. There's no way you're going to make it as a painter otherwise. You've got to have faith in yourself and your ability to get things done and to pull things off, even if they're a little bit questionable. And I have pulled off some questionable stuff, but this just wasn't working. It had a big super long tree up one side and then this kind of weird cloud structure in the back, and I don't know, it just wasn't happening. But I had that painting sitting around because, again, it's a nice piece of wood. So back in March when I decided I was going to do a lot of these, I was initially seized by just covering up with this, by inspiration of covering up one of these paintings I had in my studio that was not super bad, but it had got overworked in the sky. It was always pissing me off every time I was going through my paintings, so I just kind of covered it up with some burn number. My idea being is like, the straight burnt sienna won't do it. I'm going to do this darker. And there was a quote from Leonardo da Vinci saying where he painted on black because all light comes out of darkness. And I thought, yeah, okay, well, let's try that. And that one went really great. I'd posted up that painting and told that story already, but so I after that, started looking around for a bunch of other old, and when I say larger, I know they're not that large, folks, but larger paintings I'd had, and this was one of those. It'd been back from 2012, was a abject failure. I had a couple other abject failures. In fact, I think there was 3 12 by 12s I did. Some of them I think ended up 12 by 12 because one of my strategies sometimes for dealing with a painting is not working is to cut it down and put the emphasis in the focal area. So I might take a 12 by 16 and cut 6 inches off, and I know I'd done that to one of them, but that didn't work either. So, but I ended up with some pretty good string of successes by doing that. And recently, though, I got back more into, although I'm still staying with the burnt umber as a painting ground, as the color I'm painting on top of. I did do a big mess of 5x7s, and in the studio right now, I'm in the process of developing the best of those into larger paintings, and that's going okay, pretty good. Got some successes, no real failures, and that's how we like it. I'd like it all if they were just totally brilliant, but this is the thing. Even when you do something brilliant, are you going to be able to do something brilliant again the next day? Maybe not. Maybe it'll just be good. Maybe it'll just be solid, and I'm happy enough with that. I mean, sure, I'd like everything to be absolutely fantastically, amazingly brilliant, but the way I work, that's not exactly a possibility. And it's interesting because probably had a greater ratio of successes to failure when I worked as a professional illustrator. But there, you're not relying as much on inspiration. You're not relying as much on there's a lot of ephemeral qualities that go into a fine art painting that aren't going to be present in an illustration. Illustration serves a purpose. That's the main distinction I would make, and that's why some illustration does qualify as fine art, but much of it doesn't and can't because of the intentions behind its creation. Anyway, I can see we're getting close to the end. I got some links underneath the video. Got some paintings up on Saatchi. I will hunker down and put some more up on Saatchi today. You can go to my website, landscapepainter.co.nz. Check that out, and subscribe if you enjoy these videos. That's always good because it lets me know that we have a growing audience of people that are digging what I do and are into the tonalism as well. So I'll be back next week, and meanwhile I want you to take good care and stay out of trouble.